Alright, this is We the People News. One more time at it. Educational purposes only. Okay, not attorney, not giving legal advice. Alright? Never look just straight forward. Always look around you and be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Apologies. I did the exact same crap I did a minute ago, right? I forgot to transfer my download into deal to save space. Alright? Apologies. Alright. Let's proceed forward.
Procedures. We had to come up with the standard operating procedure that every single one of these state judges is doing, because once we figured that out, then we knew what the top was doing, right? Let me ask you guys, okay? What is the one thing that every single one of these state judges is doing against you? When you bring up an issue, an accusation, you're like, oh my God, they're breaking the law right here, and you tell that judge, what's the first thing that judge does? He ignores you, right? He ignores you. He doesn't address it. He doesn't even acknowledge it. He just ignores you, because that's...
Or he calls you a sovereign citizen.
his tactic. Now, if that's the state judge's tactic, what's the Supreme Court's tactic? To ignore you, right? They just ignore the cases. If you send in a case...
Terry versus Ohio... Pennsylvania versus Mims, number of them, right? Ignoring 1871 Civil Rights Act was written and qualified in law that the Supreme Court must go by, that cops and all the judges and all of them don't have qualified immunity, cannot have qualified immunity. All these things have been ignored. Just saying.
It's a big enough case. They don't want to get it on the record. They don't want to acknowledge it. They just ignore it, because that's what the leadership is doing. Therefore, that's what they're...
Alphonse, on his property tax, went to higher courts, the lower Supreme Courts, and the other side, the other attorney, brought up cases for the in the courts that did not apply into his case, and the judge found its way out, so it did not go to the high Supreme Court. Why did he do that? Why did he run out of that courtroom and rule against him? Because his documents was solely clearly defined that if the Supreme Court had to look at it, they would actually have to rule that everybody's non-commercial private property cannot be taxed. And that would be causing chaos all through the counties and cities and schools of their misdeeds. And when you sit and do all the figuring how they're committing fraud on your property tax for the school bonds itself. I did videos on that. Alright? Everybody's doing it. And so he was trying to find a way out of this situation, because his documents were solely clearly defined on this, that he was going to win in Supreme Court. But they found that way out, and it was an unlawful way out by using a case that did not apply into the case he had standing in that courtroom. The judge had unclean hands. He walked out of the four corners of the court. Disgusting parasite.
Workers are going to do as above, so below. Once you determine, right? Once you determine the standard operating procedure of the low-level workers, the exact same procedure will be able to be extrapolated into the high court. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because the judges at the lower level are interchangeable. The criminal judges, the family court judges, they're all the same. They're all led by the same people. Now, what's the issue? What is the breakdown of due process that exists in the criminal court, right? The criminal judges, what they're doing is they are presuming that you're guilty based upon the mere fact of an accusation. So someone said that you're a criminal, and that judge says, oh, well, you're now a criminal, right? He presumes that you're guilty based upon the mere fact of someone's accusation. Okay? That's what a criminal judge is doing. What is a family court judge doing? Are they not presuming that you're unfit based upon the mere fact of an accusation? Right? It's the exact same procedural situation. The judge's behavior remains the same whether it's a criminal matter or a family court matter. You are presumed unfit because someone said that you are unfit. That is the same breakdown of due process that exists in the criminal matter. That's why I'm grouping both of these issues together, because it's all about the judge's abuse of power. It's all about what the judges are doing, and it's a breakdown of due process that's already occurred. We can argue the criminal matter because that's enumerated in the Constitution. We can argue the grand jury because it's there, written. We can win the grand jury issue. But we got to get these judges to understand that you don't get to presume that a person is guilty based upon the mere fact of an accusation that's only a one-sided accusation from a bunch of liars. You don't get to do that shit. So if the standard operating procedure of the judiciary is to presume that you are guilty based upon the mere fact of being charged with a crime, then you can also presume that the judiciary is going to presume that you are unfit to be a parent based upon the accusation of being unfit. You must have the presumption of being fit be the starting point in the same way that you must be presumed to be innocent in a criminal matter. But you're not presumed innocent. You're not when you're charged by way of information. Because an information doesn't give you an opportunity to confront the hearsay accusations that are against you in a fair and neutral process in front of a fair and neutral decision maker, third party known as a grand jury. That's why we can group both of these issues together, because I can show the breakdown of due process, the illegal and unconstitutional acts of the judiciary based upon the presumption of being unfit or the presumption of being guilty. And the fact that Blackstone has already said that this is a breakdown of due process because the system is focusing on speed and efficiency instead of the established procedures and processes codified in the Constitution of the United States of America.
And that's the reason why attorneys don't actually use substantive due process, right? Because you're really tearing down the facts against your accuser, whoever that may be, right? But again, you got to do substantive due process because you're a defendant and you got to prove you're innocent. Just saying. You have a right to remain silent, my ass.
This is about the judges. The whole thing is about the judges, all right? It's about the judges. The judges have a duty and responsibility. The judiciary was created to be the guardians of freedom. They were there to make sure that the minority got the protections that they're guaranteed against the majority, right?
Now, I want to stretch out further on this, and I'm talking about only Texas. You got to look up your own shit in your own state, right? But the judges of the Court of Appeals ordered the schools that teach attorneys how to do this, how to violate our rights, how to ignore the criminal codes 14, 15, 16, and transportation code 543. So every attorney out there has been taught how to violate your due process, violate the criminal codes, and by the way, your traffic tickets here in Texas is under the criminal without a victim thing, which is not a criminal thing, which is, never mind, I'm not going to get deeper in that. It's so fucking stupid.
The purpose of the judiciary. And look at how far they lost their fucking way. They're not protecting anybody. The purpose of that judge was to protect the accused. Protect them from the majority. So we need to remind the judiciary. We need to remind them that today They are responsible for more than 700,000 people currently imprisoned here in America on direct facial constitutional violations. They need to be responsible for the fact that there are 2.9 million people currently imprisoned in America who were never given the opportunity to confront the hearsay accusations against them in a fair and neutral proceeding in front of a fair and neutral decision maker third party known as a grand jury, right? Because they're not making sure that the minority gets the rights that protect them, that are constitutionally codified from the prosecutor.
Listen, I've always talked about Texas, but I never thought about the overall broad, right? Everybody in prison in this country is illegally and unlawfully there due to the violation of due process. Serious criminals, all the way down to the little bitty misdemeanors, just due to the violation of due process. So even if you get what you call a due process by their today's statutes, you did not get the lawful due process.
Unfortunately for that judge, that is a crime. And it's a crime that's punishable by death as prescribed by law. The judges don't get to presume someone's guilty based upon the mere fact.
Oh, by the way, that would be Title 18.241, 18.242, and a couple others, 14.41, something like that.
Of their co-worker bringing an accusation against them so that they can financially benefit from the decisions that they make, right? When they put a person into enslavement or they take a child under Title 4D, they don't get to financially benefit from the decisions because that leads them astray. They're not fulfilling their obligations. They're breaking the law. And if a judge breaks the law, what that judge has produced, the decisions that judge makes, all of the orders that he produces, they're all void, wholly, without force or effect on the parties involved in the dispute. None of it fucking matters because the judges are all criminals. And until they return to established rule of law and obey the will of the people, the very laws that restrain them and limit their delegated authority, everything that they do is going to be unlawful because it derives from their unlawful acts.
And I'm going to challenge this part right here, right now. So if everything is illegally done from the top judge all the way down to the cops, and let's just say, for argument's sake, he is absolutely 100% correct about everything here. How many cops has literally murdered people now? How many judges put people in prison and died of whatever reason in prison? That was murder. That's intent. I'm just thinking outside the box. I'm not saying that he's true and correct. I'm arm's length in this. But if you really mathematically figure out how serious this really is, if this is true and correct, think of all the situations through this, of how many people has been put down.
Guys, you all asked me to come out and fight your cases. You all asked me to come and help you. I would love to help you guys. I would love to. But you know what? There's too many battles. I have one battle. You guys want to ask me my win rate? I don't have a really good win rate because I have one case that I'm focused on winning. One. It's the only one that matters. Because if we can get the Supreme Court of the United States to step up and obey the law, that one battle will require every single judge in the whole country to have to obey the law. We have one fight, one battle, there's one battle we got to win, and that's against the Supreme Court of the United States because they are the ones that are teaching all the other judges what to do. If we take down the Supreme Court, right, if we go against them for their criminality, for them being the leaders of all these other judges, guess what, you guys? By that one win, I will provide relief down to you because every judge in the country has to follow what they do. And if we make them own up to the fact that you guys had jurisdiction in this case, because you guys directed all the judges in the country, that they don't have to follow the Constitution of the United States of America, if we can make the Supreme Court be accountable to that one single question, that one single issue, then when they turn and say, you know what, yes, it is unconstitutional what we directed everyone to do back in 1833.
We're going to stop it right there. Now, let's say for argument's sake, y'all, this actually goes up to the Supreme Court and he actually do lose. Well, now there's document cases out there, right? People can pick this up, re-clean it, and resubmit it. So it's not like even if he loses, that it's just completely fucking dropped, right? It can be brought back up again. So, but what is the Supreme going to do now, right? They're actually going to start going, wait a minute, we need to clean our house up, right? Then they're going to start sending out letters to all the judges, which they've had done in the past, right? Start changing things. Even on a lost case, they start writing letters to all these judges. And I'm just saying that it's highly probable that once he gets up there, if he can, just saying, win or lose, there could still be a dramatic effect of changes. Because now these Supreme Court judges are going to get scared. And they don't want it brought back. All right? So they're going to redirect all the underlings how to reevaluate their situation and their standing in their courtrooms. This is We the People News. Bye, y'all.